If you are planning to work or study abroad, then I have 7 tips for you. But why should you listen to me? Well, I moved to study abroad not once, not twice, not 3 times, but I actually did it 4 times. So basically, I made all the mistakes so you don't have to. Over a period of 10 years, I moved to the UK, France, Slovenia, and Finland. I am not a study abroad expert or a guru, but I simply learned those lessons because I've been through that path. So you're gonna get a decade worth of experience in one video, and this is what I would tell my younger self 10 years ago. So if we start with the very first lesson, I'm gonna tell you a little story. When I first moved out of my country, I had just finished high school. I was pretty young. I didn't have much experience and my English skills sucked. So basically I moved to the UK and I had a very limited amount of money. I basically took risk. So I was relying on the probability of securing a part-time job that could help me finance myself to cover my living expenses. So when university started, every single day after the lectures, I would go to the library and work on my CV. So I would spend hours and hours in the library trying to perfect my CV to the highest standard, and then I would be searching for jobs and sending out as many applications as I could. And this went on for a couple of weeks and then 1 month, and every single time I'm like, okay, I need to work harder, so I'll be literally adding like my highest grades to my CV, or learning more about how to craft the perfect CV, learning more about like the interview questions and so on. So the first month went by and I couldn't get anything. The second month went by and I still couldn't get anywhere, even when I was trying my absolute best. So bear in mind, I was not applying for fancy jobs. It was just basic part-time student jobs that could help me get by, and yet it was incredibly difficult. A couple of months went by and I was still stuck because the amount of money that I initially took with me was very limited. It got to the point where I had only 2 weeks left, and after that I would literally be broke. I have no money, so there would be like no money to literally even buy food. And then one day, one of my classmates asked me to help him out with his coursework. So I was like, that's totally fine, let's do it together. I went to his place. It was fairly easy, so we did it together. I helped him out where he was struggling. He managed to submit it on time and he eventually managed to pass the module. So he told me, because I helped him out with his coursework, that he would buy me dinner as a nice gesture. So I was like, that's fine. Bear in mind that was like after a couple of months of being in the UK, and I was really stressed out because I mentioned I was not getting anywhere. I had earlier mentioned it to my friend that I was running out of funds, and after a couple of weeks I had no clue what to do. So we go to the restaurant, and as we enter, my friend greets the manager and then he starts chatting to him. So from what I could tell, my friend was like a regular customer. So he kind of like knew the manager of that restaurant, or he was actually the owner. So there was just chatting, and then he was like, by the way, this is my friend Brahim. And then he casually mentioned, oh, by the way, he's actually looking for a part-time job. And then the manager like looked at me and said, oh, we might have a vacancy, so what kind of job are you looking for? Well, by that time I was really desperate, but I still, tried to play it cool. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'm looking for like a decent part-time job, like convenient hours, and you know, I tried to be a bit professional, and then we chatted a little bit. So he's like, all right, cool, leave me your details, and actually we might have a job for you. And we had a nice evening. It was decent food there. We had a good time. And maybe like a couple of days later, the manager like rang me up, and he said like he did have a job for me. I went there and I actually started working. So the first lesson that I learned is that hard work alone is not enough for success or whatever you're trying to achieve. The social network that's around you is probably as equally important, if not more important. And that's the lesson that you should bear in mind. And even later, I became really good friends with that manager. So during my shifts or even after, in the back of the store, he would help me out with mock interviews and give me advice on how to apply for better jobs. And it eventually worked out. Thanks to him, I actually managed to secure a better job from that, and I moved on. Following on that note, let's move to the second lesson, which is, I would say, it's all about keeping a healthy balance between your studies and social activities or interest in general. Let me explain. Every single time I moved to a new country, whether it was in the UK, France or Finland, I always saw the same pattern in students. You see two types of people. People who are studying very hard, trying to get the best grades, work on their degrees, doing extra coursework, taking extra modules, trying to be the best, which fair enough, because that's why you moved abroad in the first place. And myself, I was in that category, and I would say I fell into that trap. And then on the other hand, you have students who are going all out and partying almost every single day, not paying too much attention to their studies. They party, they are like involved in every social activity, exploring the country, exploring the culture. And I think it's all about keeping a healthy balance between the two aspects. Because working hard is fine, but as I mentioned, it's not the only element for success. And at the same time, if you are partying and socializing all the time, that you're gonna ignore your studies and eventually you will fail. So basically, balancing the two aspects is the key. I vividly remember when I got my first engineering job in a professional engineering company, my manager at the time, who was also my mentor, he categorically told me that if he was recruiting and then he would get different applications, and then let's say there was one guy who had A pluses or A's in every single module, he had the highest grades, he explicitly told me that he wouldn't hire that person because he knows that that person is not doing anything else apart from studying day and night, unless you are a genius. But nevertheless, his point was, if you're only focusing on your studies, then you're probably lacking other social skill. So that's my advice to you. Try to build a versatile portfolio where you can demonstrate that you have a wide spectrum of skills, ranging from social skills, people skills, technical skills, analytical skills. And that's what you should work on. And that is my advice to you. At the same time, there is no harm in socializing or partying once in a while, because one day you might go out and then you meet one person that could literally change your life. This brings me to the third advice, and for that I'm gonna say, ask someone who has already been through that journey. Ask someone who has already been abroad, because that's gonna save you a lot of time, effort and money. If you are moving abroad and then you ask someone in that country where you are going who had been living for, let's say, 3 years, and then you ask someone else who was also in that country for 5 years, and then they give you some valuable insights and some advice, then you are moving to that place already with 8 years worth of experience. You get 3 years from the first person and 5 years from the other person. And this could actually be incredibly useful. For example, when I moved to France, I went to study in an engineering school there in French it's called École des Mines. It was in Nantes. So that's the northwest of France. And for the first month I was paying for public transport like everyone else. And then one day, my friend who had known someone else who had already been studying there for, I think it was 6 years or something, told him that you can actually get a pass for public transport for free if you are 25 years old or over. And that applied to my situation, and I still couldn't believe it because it was like really shocking to me. Like, how is it possible that you can use public transport for free? And obviously this depends on the country. So there was basically one office where you can go and apply for this. And as it turns out, if you are 25 years old, a student or older, then you are basically not working. So by default, you qualify for this free public transport. And this saved me hundreds of euros. It was just by asking someone or knowing someone who actually studied in that place before. Think about it, for example, if let's say you have a car and then your car broke down, and then you are trying to find the best mechanic in your town. So let's say this is the first time that your car broke down, you don't have much experience, so without asking, you go to some random mechanic, and then they fix your car, they charge you like a lot of money, and then they turn out to be not a great mechanic, so your car breaks down after that. So because they were very expensive, you already lost some money there, and because they were not experienced or they were not really good mechanics, your car breaks down again. And then after that, in the same way, you go to another mechanic, you don't really know if they are good or not, and then you can only learn through your experience with them. However, if you ask around, the people can tell you where the best mechanic is. So that's gonna save you money, time and effort. You go straight to the best mechanic with the best experience, the best expertise, and also the best prices. So you're gonna save in so many different ways. And it's very similar when it comes to studying abroad, as I mentioned. If you ask someone who's already been through that path in that country, they can benefit you in so many different ways. It will save you a lot of money, effort, and most importantly, your time.